Terrell Smith didn't just show up in joint practices against Miami. He hijacked them, turning every rep into a showcase of why opposing quarterbacks should be losing sleep. And now there's a whisper snaking through the league that the Dolphins might want him in teal before Week 1 even kicks off. A whisper that hits Bears fans like a gut punch because it forces a question nobody thought we'd be asking in August. Are we really about to lose one of our hungriest young corners right when our secondary feels primed to dominate? 4 pass breakups, a near interception, constant harassment of Zach Wilson. That's not just a good day at camp. That's a resume builder in front of the one team that needs him most, and the timing couldn't be more dangerous because we've all seen how joint practices turn into open-air scouting combines, and this one just gave Miami a front-row seat to Smith's rise. This is where it gets messy. Miami's cornerback depth is shaky after moving on from Jalen Ramsey, and Smith's tape screams plug and play, physical at the line, sticky in phase, fearless against 50-50th balls, exactly the profile. That can tilt an AFC playoff race, which means they won't hesitate to test Ryan Poles' resolve if they smell blood. And the biggest twist? Corner might be one of the Bears' deepest rooms right now thanks to rookie Zah Frazier joining the mix, which on paper makes Smith expendable, but in reality could rip a hole in the chemistry that's been building since last season's late surge. Remember 06, when depth in the secondary let us play fearless up front? Or 18, when one injury turned the dominant defense into one scrambling for answers? Trading Smith now risks recreating that nightmare, but keeping him could be the difference between a defense that bends and one that breaks teams in December. Picture this. It's a cold, swirling wine afternoon at Soldier Field. Playoff implications on the line, and Smith jumps a slant for a game-sealing pick. Are we seriously willing to trade that possibility for a mid-round draft pick in a shrug? And yet, Big's example of Crevan LeBlanc proves these swaps happen. That front offices don't just watch, they act fast. And if Miami dials, they might offer enough to make even the most loyal GM pause. This is where it cuts deeper. Smith isn't just another depth guy. He's a cost-controlled, ascending piece who's already shown he can play inside, outside, and on special teams, the kind of versatility that keeps you alive in January when attrition starts biting. Losing that for a future asset will be the kind of gamble that either looks genius or haunts you for years, and Bears history has both kinds of receipts. Think of the heartbreak trades that made sense in the moment, but left fans screaming. By Thanksgiving, we've lived that pain, and it doesn't fade easy. But here's the curveball. What if Miami isn't the only one watching? What if other CB-needy teams saw the same tape and start a bidding war, forcing Chicago into a decision that could reshape not just the 53-man roster, but the very identity of this defense? What happens next could change the NFC North calculus in ways we haven't dared to map out yet, because removing one aggressive, ascending corner from this unit is like taking a piston out of an engine. It still runs, but not with the same violent efficiency. So now we're left in that dangerous space where logic says, listen to offers, and your gut screams, don't you dare. And Bears fans know that's the kind of crossroads that defines entire seasons. If the Dolphins make their move, do we have the cold-blooded discipline to deal him, or the fire-in-the-belly defiance to slam the phone down? And the question you have to ask yourself tonight is this. If letting Smith go meant a shot at filling another hole, would you take that trade, even if it meant watching him pick off a pass that ends our season wearing someone else's colors? Then answer me this, Chicago. If you've got the nerve to greenlight that trade, are you ready to own every consequence that follows when the grass turns frosty and the games start to count double? Because from the moment that phone call goes through, there's no hiding from the ripple effect. No rewinding the tape when a player who bled for this defense is suddenly locking down receivers in a different jersey. This isn't a mid-tier guard swap or a depth tight end shuffle. This is handing away a defensive chess piece who's been molded inside our playbook, who's absorbed every coverage adjustment, every hot check, every disguise we perfected to bait quarterbacks into mistakes. Once Smith is gone, you can't put that intel back in the vault. And if it ends up on the wrong sideline in a playoff push, you better believe it's going to be used. I can still feel the knot in my stomach. From 10, when one injury flipped our secondary into scramble mode, and every coverage call felt like a gamble with the house money. We can talk all we want about depth charts and next man up mentality, but there's a difference between a body and a baller, and Smith has been the latter since the minute he stepped on the practice field this summer. And here's where the stakes get higher. You let him walk, and maybe you get that fourth rounder. Maybe you even turn it into a solid pick next year. But what happens when December rolls around and your CB2 goes down? Suddenly you're signing a street free agent who hasn't hit a sled since minicamp, while somewhere else Smith is breaking up a third down pass to punch his new team's ticket to January. That's not paranoia. That's history. We've seen this movie too many times, and it never ends in our favor. And the heat isn't just external. Inside Hollis Hall, you know position coaches are pleading their case, pounding the table to keep their guy, because they've seen him shut down. Roots are weak. They've seen him turn reps against starters into tape worth bragging about. That kind of trust doesn't grow on trees. And ripping it out now could plant doubt in a room that's been feeding off confidence since OTAs. You can already feel the front office squeeze, the allure of a trade chip versus the fear of creating. A soft spot just as the schedule starts stacking NFC North brawls. We're not talking about meaningless December games here. We're talking about trips to Lambeau, about divisional tilts where one busted coverage can swing the standings and write the narrative for an entire offseason. And Miami knows that, which is why their interest isn't going to fade quietly. They'll push. They'll dangle assets. They'll test every seam in our resolve. Because they've got a hole to fill, and they've just had a live audition of exactly what Smith brings. The danger here isn't just losing a good player. It's losing him to a situation where he gets sharper, more confident, and then becomes a measuring stick we have to beat in the postseason. Picture the Soldier Field lights burning into the lakefront haze, the roar of fans trying to will a 3rd and 7 stop, and across from our fence is Smith, eyes locked, reading every split and stem like he's seen it 100 times. Because he has. That's the nightmare. And it's one we control entirely by either hanging up the phone or giving in to the itch for draft capital. Every move a GM makes sends a signal, and this one would shout to the entire locker room exactly where. The balance sits between building for tomorrow and going for it today. We've had regimes play the long game before, and sometimes it works. But sometimes it leaves you watching someone else's highlight reel in January, knowing you pulled the thread yourself. So here's the last question I'll throw at you. Before the window closes, is the satisfaction of a future pick worth the risk of watching Terell Smith make the kind of play that ends our season, somewhere warm, in colors that aren't ours? Personally, I say no. I've been in the stands too many times when one player's presence or absence define the final score, and I've learned that some gambles aren't worth the payout. Smith feels like one of those guys you win with, and if that's the case, I'd rather keep him in navy and orange and let other teams wonder how they're going to beat us with him on our side.